I've made a really big mess. At least maybe you guys can't see most of it. This week has been a week, I tell you. We are working from home, doing school from home, and all trying to not lose our minds. So I think my kids have felt more frustrated this week. I've felt more frustrated this week. Like, there's really just so much to try to manage all in one day. And then some of those more routine things that we think that we should be doing, maybe that's it. Maybe there's always that feeling in your head of what you should be doing, that and the guilt of maybe not getting it all done. But we all muddle through and we'll get there. And let's talk about some knitting. So first, for finished objects, you can see I did finish the Shift Cowl by Andrea Mowry. The colors, the spin cycle is something else, really. You never know what's going to happen when you knit with spin cycle. This, I really like the way it looks. I have to admit that I kind of wish I'd just gone for knitting the shawl version, because I really do like a big shawl, and I feel like I lose some of this when it sits on my neck. It really looks great on my 8, almost 9-year-old, which makes me a little bit sad because it looks so good on her, and I thought I'm not gonna just give her a cowl made out of spin cycle when she's 8, but she might borrow it sometimes. I think I went with the cowl because I really wanted to knit with spin cycle, and I didn't want to make such a big investment in making the shawl. So I am happy with it, but there is part of me that regrets just not biting the bullet and going for it. I might still make the shawl. I might look for some cheaper alternatives. I have a couple thoughts in my head right now. Any suggestions, please feel free to leave them in the comments, and see what I have. The pattern does say that you're going to use most of your 3 skeins of spin cycle, and I really did. This is all I have left of all 3 of them, if you can see. So the colors were the Meadow, Leith, and the Castle. I think this one is Leith. I feel like this was the Meadow and this one's the Castle. But again, with spin cycle, even the same colors, like it's gonna look different no matter what. But I really like it. The one concern I had was here, where I was starting to get, hold on, I'm going to take it off and hopefully not make my hair super frizzy. When we got here, and I knew that in the Castle and in the Meadow, I was starting to get to 2 sections of yellow. I got a little nervous about that. I didn't want it, I wanted some more contrast. I was worried that I wouldn't be able to see it. I think you can really see it. It worked out. I just kept going. I put my trust in the yarn, and I kept going, and the yellows did still have a bit of contrast. They never got to the same shade or tone of yellow at the same time. So I was relieved. And I know some people pick and choose when they're working with spin cycle. They might start the ball at a different point or break the yarn and start again to avoid things like that. But I do think on the whole, the colors really worked out nicely. So that is my shift cowl. The other finished object I have is the Everyday Slouchy Beanie. This one I had knit the brim of before. I was waiting for the Chiaogoo Shorties to come and I wanted to test them out for knitting the body of the hat. I thought I had cast on one of the larger sizes, and I guess I didn't, because when I got going a little bit more on the main part of the hat, I did do a stitch count because it had been a while since I picked it up, and I was knitting, and I did think the brim looked a little small. I was knitting the smallest size according to my stitch count. So I kept going because I thought I'm not doing that brim again. And it fits, but it's a little snug. So it actually fits my kids both. They like it, so I think I'll probably let them wear it more than me. It's definitely, when it's a slouchy beanie, on them for sure, it's really slouchy. But it was still, once I got past the brim, it was fairly quick, and particularly, it was my first time in a very long time knitting with mohair. So that was fun little experiment. The kids keep touching it. Oh, mohair, they pet it and think it's so soft. So they really like it. The mohair is some white Kidsilk Haze, and the speckled yarn is some that I dyed myself. Last episode I talked about wanting to start my pink velvet. I had received my kit from Lizzie Yarns, and I was so excited about that Suri silk that I really wanted to cast on right away, and I had every intention of doing that. Then that evening I put my kids to bed. I went looking through my Chiaogoo set and realized that the needles that I needed were in another project. So did I put the other project on hold so that I could use the needles? I thought, no, I'm going to finish this. It happened to be my Marley shawl, which I believe I showed first episode. It's grown quite a bit because I was determined I was going to finish it. You'll notice that I did not finish it. So here is my Marley shawl. It's come quite a ways from the first episode, but again, not done. So here's one side, and then there's the lighter side of the brioche. When I started this project, I knew that I picked yarn from my stash. So I knew the pattern called for 2 skeins of each color. And I thought I really wanted to use the Qing Fibres singles. I loved the colors. I liked the way they kind of were enough contrast from each other but matched each other for the brioche. And so I looked at it and I thought, well, I can just make it smaller. I can just make the shawl a little bit smaller. And that's what I planned on doing. So I kept knitting, and while I was working on it, I thought if I really needed to, I had that third pink skein. Because originally when I purchased these, I had purchased them to make a 3-color shawl with the duck egg, the Shibuya, and oyster, which I've put away. Wasn't that good of me to tidy up. And the Shibuya is more pink. No, the oyster is more pink, sorry. The oyster is more pink, and I thought if worse came to worse, I could use the pink to make the edging, the marled edging, and just make it pink. And I think Molly from A Homespun House had talked about doing that with her Marley shawl. I never did see if she finished it, or and I did look on her Ravelry page and didn't see anything as a finished object for that. I played around in Ravelry a little bit, and I didn't see anybody else who had added a third color as the border. So I started to look for people who had made the shawl smaller. And I found one that I really, really liked. She'd made the shawl a little bit smaller, and she'd made the border a little bit thinner. And I sent her a message asking about when she stopped doing the main body of the shawl, and she was really great about sending me a comment back with her modifications. And so I was getting to the point here, and again, I know the brioche is so stretchy, so even though I feel like it looks small, it stretches out really well. But the pattern says not to stretch, to be careful not to stretch it too hard. And I've never knit brioche before, so I want to make sure I'm following the directions. And I thought, you know, I just really, like I said with the shift cowl, I really like a big shawl. I basically want to be wrapped in a blanket. That's probably what it comes down to when I'm wearing a shawl. I want it to really wrap around. My favorite shawl is my Find Your Fade. I also posted on my Instagram as I was weighing the balls and watching how small they were getting. I put a post on my Instagram seeing if anybody else had some suggestions, and someone else had suggested I could use 4 colors, and I thought that perhaps I could fade the pink in somewhere because there is some pink in the Shibuya too, but then I didn't have anything else that was a singles base. And in talking to my friend Connie, she agreed that it wouldn't be really good to match, or it might not look or feel the same if I didn't use a single for the 4th color. So I kind of scrapped that idea, and I decided to order some more of each color. And I know I've been spending my money on yarn for long enough to know that if you're going to make a project in hand-dyed yarn, you should definitely make sure you have enough. And I knew when I started this I didn't have enough. I didn't listen to myself, and I didn't listen to reason, and I started anyway. So I had to buy some more and keep my fingers crossed that they would match. You get where this is going? This is the duck egg that I originally bought. This is the duck egg that came in the mail. So, all is not lost. I'm going to, my plan is to try to fade them into each other. It'll be fine. It'll be fine, but when I first opened the package, my heart kind of sank a little bit. And I knew I'd actually sent Connie a message saying I'm a little worried because the picture on the website looks more green than mine. And same thing, the Shibuya seems to have a little bit more color in it, which I'm not mad at. I don't mind that at all. I think this is fine. What really got me was this one. And again, it'll be okay. But where I thought to myself I wasn't going to do a 4-color shawl, now I feel like I am, because these are close, but not quite. But so anyway, she did get put on hold while I waited for the rest of the yarn to come in the mail. So as much as I was a little disappointed, that meant I could use the needles to start my pink velvet. And I actually, a couple days ago, just finished the color work portion. And I wanted to do nothing but work on this sweater. Every spare second I had, I was working on this. The Lizzie yarns, particularly this Suri silk, When I had first thought about knitting this pattern and I didn't have the Suri silk, I thought, oh well, maybe I can knit something from stash and I won't use any fuzzy yarn, because I kind of thought, why would I do color work in a fuzzy yarn, as I pet it. And then I thought, well, I could substitute mohair. I have mohair. I don't need to order anything. And then Lizzie on Yarns put the kits up on her website as a pre-order. And I thought, I was back and forth between a couple of her colors a couple of times. And I finally went on these. Again, if I mentioned it last time, the darker color is her Yakkity yak base, which is a yak blend. I'll look on it in just a second. And then the Suri silk, the Yakkity yak is in Indigo, and the Suri silk is in Cinderella's slipper, this beautiful light blue. And I want to knit all the things that have Suri silk in them forever and ever. But I loved every second of knitting that color work. Now and then when I finished the color work section, I was really very happy to find that I had quite a lot left. So in the kit came with 2 skeins of the Suri silk, and really probably could have come with 1, and if I'd knit from the inside and the outside. But I have 0 regrets because I can use this for other things. And I've actually started already. So I had about 35 grams left of the 50 gram skein, each one, by the time I was done the color work on the yoke. So again, Andrea Mowry comes out with patterns and things, and I automatically want them. So she released her minted hat, which holds Suri silk with a DK weight to make a more worsted weight hat. No, sport weight, sorry. Suri silk with a sport weight yarn. And I went into my stash and I found a gray. I don't know what it is. I don't know where it came from. But it's in there. And I'm using it together with the rest of the Cinderella slipper to make the minted hat. So I've just only started the cable section. Andrea Mowry is doing a knit along this weekend. Today is May 30th. So it's been going for the last 2 days. And so she's doing a minted weekend knit along for her new hat pattern, or for a hat. So this is a lot of fun. I cast this on last night, and I'm hoping that I'll finish it today. I also pulled out a project that seems to be one I pick up here and there. It is the Rose Cardigan by Andrea Mowry. Again, giant shocker that this whole podcast so far has been Andrea Mowry. It's not going to change. Sorry. Maria from the Knitting Loft she was to the point where she put together all 4 quadrants. So if you're not familiar with the Rose Cardigan, it is knit in 4 quadrants. This is my one finished quadrant. And this cable that goes up the sleeve. And then the 4 quadrants are put together, and then you knit the cabled collar around. I do have part of a second quadrant here. It seems like I knit 1 quadrant and then put it away for a bit and then pick it up again. So, but when Maria posted hers seamed together, I thought I need to get mine back out again. So the yarn that I have for this, I bought as a kit from the Knitting Loft. And so I started with, which color was the first? So I started with this darker blue. This one is Bering Sea. This is Artful Bell yarn. This one is Bering Sea. And then I went from Bering Sea to, I have to peek inside of this one because I forget what it was. I think. Freedom. So the lighter blue is the lighter turquoise is Freedom. And then this one is Mirage. And then this one, Balance, Stardust. So these are my 4 colors. The Mirage and the Stardust are looking very similar. They are and they aren't. There we go. That one has, you can see it a little bit better now that this one has a few more darker colors in there. So that one, that one's going to get a little bit more attention hopefully the next couple weeks too. It started raining here. I don't know if you can hear that. One of the things, I know sometimes I feel like I sound like a one-trick pony, like Andrew Mowry over and over and over again. That seems to be the majority of what I'm knitting. I do have my eye on a few other patterns. I'm starting to put a few, but right now, most of the list of the things that I want to knit are her patterns. So a little bit, I guess if you want to get personal about me, I took a really long break from knitting, probably about 3 years or so. We all have those times in our lives that just throw us for a real loop. And I know I've heard people talk about knitting getting them through those tough times. But for me, I couldn't knit. I couldn't pick it up. I don't know, the simplest things, I couldn't bring myself to do it. I don't know why. Because it had been such a comfort for me, and I always felt like I was one of those people that had to keep my hands busy all the time. But my life fell apart, and I felt like I just couldn't do what I always did. So in those 3 years, I didn't touch my knitting at all, and I started thinking, why do I even have all this yarn? Why am I keeping all these things? And then Andrea Mowry's patterns were the ones that sort of piqued my interest again and got me back on my Ravelry page and starting to be interested in trying out a few more patterns. Then my friend Connie from the InStitches podcast told me about the Knitting Loft in Toronto and how much she loved it there, and she really wanted me to come. And then I sort of hemmed and hawed about it because I really wasn't knitting and I didn't see much point. They were getting in some Le Bien Aimé, and they were going to have a launch party for Le Bien Aimé in, I guess it was about June. So it was my daughter's soccer tournament and I couldn't go, and I didn't really care if I couldn't go. But the more I thought about it, it just kind of wouldn't leave my head. And I ended up ordering yarn, sitting on the edge of the soccer field over the phone, calling and talking to Maria on the phone, and ordering, I'd had Connie send me pictures of fades to make the Find Your Fade shawl. So this is what she came up with, and I ordered the yarn from Maria sitting at the edge of the soccer field over the phone. And I don't know the colors offhand, but in telling my story, I wanted to show my shawl. So this is with 5. I think I only went for 5 and I changed the fade a little bit, but the original pattern has 7 colors. So this is my Le Bien Aimé Find Your Fade shawl that really, like I said, I need a big shawl now. It's the only way that I want to wear them. It's just completely wrapped up in wonderful shawly goodness. But this project was the project that got me back knitting again. So between Andrew Mowry's patterns and my friend Connie never stopping asking me if I wanted to be knitting anything, and convincing me to try a new yarn store, now I'm back to knitting all the time, my hands being busy all the time. So again, I know that it seems like I knit a lot of the same designers' patterns, and that might continue for a little while because there's so many of them that I still want to get to. But, and then they're already on my list, and then she puts new ones out, and then I want those too. So you could probably expect to see more of those coming for a little while. And I don't mean to be a one-trick pony, but that's what's brought me back to my knitting life. And that's that. I had to stop recording a little bit earlier, so we're back and the light may be a little bit different, but we're going to get this done today. So the last thing that I wanted to do was show some of my new acquisitions. I have sort of tried to slow down my shopping a little bit too, because I did feel like it's not sustainable for me to be spending the way I was. The Canadian dollar right now it's a little bit hard to do any shopping from the States. Shipping on top of the exchange rate, it just kills you when you're trying to buy some things that you really love. But I did, as I mentioned before, when I was talking about knitting the hats, I did get in the set of the Chiaogoo Shorties. This is the blue set. I bought the red set from Connie, so I have both of them now. And what I did, I really like them for knitting the small circumference. So here's all the needles that come with 3-inch and 2-inch lengths, and then the different lengths of cords. What I had heard was that it gets difficult when the circumference gets really small, like decreasing for the hat. So with the Everyday Slouchy Beanie, what I did when it started to get a little tight on the one needle was I actually, because there's 2 lengths of each needle, I could use both the 2-inch and the 3-inch, and I put 2 sets of needles in. So I had 2 lengths of cable, each with their own 3.5mm needle attached, and ended up finishing the hat on 2 instead of trying to dig out my DPNs, which I haven't used in so long. I really don't know where the majority of them are. So what I was looking for was options, because I had heard, oh, you have to go to DPNs. You have to, for socks for the heels and things like that. So I wanted to see how flexible I could be in working with these needle sets. So when I was working on my dad's sock, which is here, but it hasn't gotten a whole lot of attention, I was able to do the short row heel on the smaller circumference needles, just working back and forth. I know some people, I may be depending on how you like to work your heel, that may not work for you, but for this particular sock and the short row heel, it was possible. So I haven't had to use a different needle for those. And then again, by putting them on 2 cables, I was able to work around decreasing for the top of the hat as well. So there's options, there's possibilities. So if that's something that was concerning you in whether these sets would be useful or not, so far I'm really happy with them. Again, I can see where there could be difficulties, but I'm going to keep playing around, and I'm really glad to have them as part of my collection of tools. I mentioned too I was waiting on some, mostly minis. There's not a whole ton here, but a few. I showed some restraint. Hugh Loco had a little bit of a sale a little while ago for some colors that she was retiring. This one is Unicorn Hideout. This is so much fun. This one is Polaris. These two are Sparkly. This is Pond Life. Pond Life. And because I'm trying to keep my crocheted blanket a little bit light, but this one has just that little bit of sparkle and that little bit of color in it. This is Fig. And then I did buy one full-size skein. This is Open Skies. So that's exciting. And I did have one more package come from Chromatic Yarns. This one is her Knitical roll. All of her colorways are Dungeons and Dragons themes. I don't play Dungeons and Dragons, but I'm curious about it, and I love the whole fantasy story behind the game, from what I do understand about it, and the different paths that the creativity allowed around that. But I've never actually played to know much of anything about it. But this one is Flowers for Yasha. And I have a couple other colors of hers too, that I haven't actually put them side by side together, but I think they might even be able to go together. Just a second, I'm going to go and get them. Okay, so this is my newest one. This is the Flowers for Yasha. This one is called Rage. Maybe I am drawn to similar colors. And this one is called Pixie. And I think now that I have them together, this may be a little bit more red, because this one is a little bit reddy pink. Here it's more red, but it's a different red. This one seems more orangey red. This one may be more bluey red. But I feel like something could happen here with these three, maybe together. I'm going to think about that some more now that I have them out. Anyway, I feel like I've been maybe a little scattered this episode. I'm not sure. I guess I won't know until I edit things and watch it back a little bit, but I hope it hasn't come across as all over the place. Maybe we'll see. But I think we're all a little all over the place right now. So I think that's about it for me. I'm losing light. I'm going to have to get my kids ready for bed soon. But thanks very much for tuning in if you have, and hopefully we'll see you next episode, and I hope you guys are all staying well, and take care. Talk to you soon.